OK, alors après la réunion à l'ordre, de sorte qu'on prend à vos
I'll call the meeting to order. We have technical problems, so if you are on the air with the internet, you will have the audio but not the video. We are trying to work on that to fix it up. We need a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Danny, seconded by Hector. All those in favor indicate by saying yes. Contrary, no. Motion is carried. Are there any items on the agenda that brings you in a conflict of interest, Carl? Yes. The motion that will be made for the Acadian Games. I am on the committee of the Acadian Games, so it will be a conflict. Thank you. Anybody else? On the same note, I worked for the CSAP for the operations, and I am involved with the Acadian Games, so it might be a conflict of interest. So we go on to 3.1, the ban proposed on the plastic film. So Mr. Green, you can come forward.
Use scan camera. Damn. Avez-vous fermé votre micro?
So the current situation worldwide, some recyclers are diverting material to other countries, India, Vietnam, Malaysia, Mexico, and some other countries that perhaps are not really well known for their environmental standards. So that's causing some issues as well. One of the issues that China had with the film plastics, there was a lot of contamination in it. So recycling facility operators are slowing down their sorting lines, putting more people on there, trying to make a cleaner product in the hope that China will start taking it again. In some areas where the material is not banned from landfill, people have just started excluding it from their recycling stream. So in Nova Scotia, facilities in Nova Scotia are stockpiling plastic film. If they have indoor storage, that's not an issue in terms of the quality of the material. If it's stored outside, then quality becomes an issue because the UV tends to break the plastic down. You can store it inside, and it remains a very quality product, but of course it does become a fire hazard at a certain point when you're stockpiling plastic. Halifax has requested of the province the permission to landfill this material, and the province has granted that permission for a 6-month period. At this point, we don't believe Halifax has actually done that. I don't think they've landfilled any yet, but they did seek the permission from the province, and it was granted. Now, our recycling contractor here, Scotia Recycling, is not supportive of landfilling the material. They're still stockpiling and hoping to find markets. So management of plastic film in our region annually, 193 metric tons of plastic film gets recycled, but we estimate there's probably still 1,000 tons that's going into landfill in our region. Nova Scotians tend to use between 3 to 500 million shopping bags annually. It's a rather staggering number. And the other consideration is litter. Everyone's seen a plastic bag in a tree, and the fact is they don't break down. It takes 1,000 years for them to go away, and they never biodegrade. They just break into smaller and smaller fragments. And of course, we've heard most recently that they're finding what they're calling micro pieces of plastic in our bottled water supplies now. So plastic is everywhere in the environment. It's not going away. In the waste hierarchy, we always traditionally produced reuse and recycle, but now we're really looking at the reduce side of things. Reduce first. If you don't need it, don't take it. And then reuse if you can, and then recycle comes a little further down the chain, and disposal is the very last option we want to consider. And again, our goal is waste reduction. Recycling and even waste to energy and certainly landfilling are sort of the last things we want to look at. So reducing our use of plastic bags it's an easy place to start. Single-use bags are inefficient. Most places provide the reusable bags, and some retailers like Costco have never ever supplied bags. So really, there's a lot of things you can do. Consume less. Again, that's our big message. Refuse a bag if you don't need it. Some stores are like Walmart now are charging a voluntary fee of a nickel on a bag. They've reduced their consumption of plastic bags by 50% by doing that because people don't want to spend the nickel. I know I've been seen carrying armloads of packages out of Walmart because I wouldn't pay for the bag and I forgot to bring mine. So there's a couple of options on the table, and one is banning single-use plastic bags. The reason we're talking about this is on January 11th, 2018, the Minister of Environment from Nova Scotia, Mr. Rankin, asked the Nova Scotia regional chairs if they would be supportive of a ban on these plastic bags. And for anyone who doesn't know, the province of Nova Scotia is divided into 7 waste management regions. Every region has a chair. Ours currently is Leland Anthony from Yarmouth, and those regional chairs meet on a regular basis. And the minister considers them to be the primary conduit of information from government back down to the municipal units. So when the minister asked the regional chairs if they would support a ban on plastic bags, the regional chairs decided they had to go back and ask their individual municipal units because they can, the chairs don't have the authority to commit municipal units to something like that. So that's why we're talking to our individual municipal units and asking them to make the decision. Are you supportive of a ban on plastic bags, or do you not want to support a ban on plastic bags? There's other options that are being considered. One is incentive programs. Again, I mentioned the Walmart example. Bulk barns, another one. So we can leave it up to an incentive-based program as opposed to banning material as well. And voluntary participation, in other words, education, trying to get retailers to provide other alternatives, maybe paper bags. But again, we tend to fall back on education quite a bit. So this is the official position of the Retail Council of Canada, and this is their list of points and the order in which they would do them. They would like to see, their first choice would be mandate businesses develop an individual plan for their own business on how they would deal with single-use plastic bags. Their second choice would be if there was a requirement that they have a voluntary fee on the bags. And their third and last choice would be that a mandatory fee be imposed upon them. And under no circumstances, apparently, do they support that those fees be collected and remitted to government because they say it would create too much administrative burden. I'm not sure of the legitimacy of that claim since most of them already do it with pop cans, and it doesn't seem to put anyone out of business. But that is the official position of the Retail Council of Canada. And their other thing is that if jurisdictions are considering a ban, they would like to see them harmonized. And right now, the City of Montreal has imposed a ban on plastic bags, and the Retail Council of Canada is suggesting that if you're going to implement a ban, then you should follow the same rules as Montreal, basically. So moving forward, it's important to remember that any municipality can legislate a ban or put a fee in place through bylaw. But obviously, a provincial-wide approach is certainly more beneficial than 50 different municipalities trying to do something different. So again, the regional chairs are just looking for your opinion on the topic. What regional chairs really do support is an extended producer responsibility program. I think that's really the end game here. Most of Canada, in fact, everyone except Atlantic Canada and Alberta already have extended producer responsibility programs in place. Last year, those programs paid out over $300 million to municipalities in Canada, and Nova Scotia got none of that. And in all likelihood, everyone in Nova Scotia is paying the fees on these products. We're just not reaping the benefits of it. So what we know, Region 1, which is Cape Breton, hasn't talked about the issue yet. Region 2A is supporting EPR. Region 3, they haven't decided. Region 2B hasn't decided. Region 3, yes for EPR. Cumberland, Amherst, Town of Truro said yes. The Town of Oxford, I think, said no. Region 4 supports, that's HRM, supports extended producer responsibility. Region 5 says yes, and I have their resolution. Region 6 said yes, and they have their resolution as well. And in Region 7, the town and municipality of Digby have both passed motions supporting a ban on plastic bags. Our understanding is the town of Yarmouth has also passed one. Municipality of Yarmouth has passed a motion supporting extended producer responsibility, but not necessarily a ban on plastic bags. And municipality of Argyll and yourselves are still talking about the issue. So this is the resolution that was passed by Region 5. It's a little wordy, so I won't read it for you, but that's the wording that they used. So if anyone has any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
And how that...
Again, it's short for extended producer responsibility, and the idea is right now responsibility for the end of life of products, packaging, and that materials rests with municipalities. The consumer buys it, and when they're done with it, they put it curbside, and then municipalities are responsible for the cost of dealing with that material. The purpose of extended producer responsibility is to shift that responsibility from municipalities to the retailers and the manufacturers who put those products into the marketplace in the first place. So it's really just intended to reach the really big ones, the Unilever brands and the Crafts and the huge retailers like Walmart and that sort of thing. But again, it's to make them responsible. And what happens is they incorporate these costs early on in their product modeling, and we're talking about very, very small unit fees here. My favorite example is the Kraft Dinner box. I think the fee they pay on that is 1/100th of a cent per box. But again, volume-wise, it adds up. It's estimated here in Nova Scotia, if the province introduced EPR, we'd be looking at about $16 million paid back to municipalities. Obviously, that's not going to cover the total cost of your waste management system, but it's a significant amount of money. And again, it's that whole paradigm shift of making the people who put the material out there responsible for it, as opposed to having the municipal taxpayer responsible for it.
Are there any other questions?
Halifax was allowed, given permission to put their plastics in the landfill. Do you know how much they'll be allowed to? Is there a certain amount of certain tonnage that they'll be allowed to put in it, or it's whatever they have?
The exemption was not granted on a tonnage base. It was just on a calendar time basis. So for that 6-month period from the time of the approval, they can landfill. My understanding is as much as they have. But again, Halifax is trying to avoid doing it, and they are trying to find alternative markets for the material.
For what would be the percentage of plastic bags in the plastic itself, like the bulk of it, that we'd be saving?
The percentage of plastic film is actually quite small. It's, I think, probably in the ballpark about 5% of the total volume of recyclables we collect. So it's really a very small amount. So it's not a huge impact on the programs overall. But it is important to, when I want to bring back EPR again, the EPR that we're talking about is for what they call printed paper and packaging. So that would essentially cover everything that's collected in your blue bag in Nova Scotia. Whereas, again, the plastic film, very small amount volume-wise.
So the blue bag that we're using now would be banned if we decided to go. What's replacing what would be replacing those bags? Because I think people would just burn it myself. I don't know, but what would be replacing those?
Well, specifically, the minister is talking about single-use shopping bags, carry-out bags, so things like clear bags and blue bags would not be included in it. In fact, again, they haven't actually brought forward a plan yet, so we don't know exactly what would be included. But if they do follow the Montreal example, the Sobeys bag itself that you carry out to your car would be banned, but those bags in the produce section for your fruits and vegetables would still be available. So it's specifically targeting those bags that you carry from the store to your car.
Any other questions? On the question of EPR, like you said, that fee is already on probably every package we buy in Nova Scotia, so it doesn't make any sense that we wouldn't support having that, because essentially we're paying it and then the company gets to keep that. I know it's not a lot of money, but it would make a huge difference for municipal units.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, it's not significant to those companies, but it'd be very significant to municipalities in Nova Scotia. At one point, a couple of years ago, the province announced that they were going to go forward with extended producer responsibility, but unfortunately, some very inaccurate messages got out in the media that extended producer responsibility was going to mean the death to small business in Nova Scotia, and for some reason, that message seemed to resonate with government, and they essentially ran screaming away. The reality is, when we look at these other jurisdictions across Canada, that extended producer responsibility has no impact on small business whatsoever. There's a multitude of protections for small business built into these programs, one being de minimis, which is just a threshold, really. In most of these programs, you have to have over $2 million in sales before you'd even be considered. There's what they call a single storefront exemption, so if you only have one location, you can sell $50 million and you still wouldn't be impacted because you just have the one location. So there's multitudes of provisions in these programs for small business. In British Columbia, which is the most recent province to bring in their EPR, I can't tell you, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can remember the percentage. I can't tell you how many businesses they have, but I'm sure it's a lot more than Nova Scotia. But the businesses that pay into the Extended Producer Responsibility Program total less than 1% of the businesses in British Columbia. So these programs do not impact small business at all.
If I remember the meeting we were at a few years ago for the municipality of Clare, no business fit within that framework, so nobody from Clare or business owner would be paying. It's been a while, but
If we were to support as a council, do we have any other responsibilities after we do support? What's our role in this? What's our position?
At this point, the Minister of Environment is just asking the question, would municipalities offer their support? There's no actual responsibility on the municipalities if they say yes or no to the Minister's suggestion. And even if we all support it, there's no guarantee the Minister will actually carry through with it. At this point, the question is just being raised, how do municipalities in Nova Scotia feel about the concept of a ban on single-use plastic bags?
I guess the question I have as well is the province looking to ban it and asking us for the support that the ban they want to impose, or essentially are they asking the municipalities if they want a ban, and then they'll support the ban we're asking for. I know it's semantic, but essentially responsibility will lie with the person or the groups that are asking for it.
I think it's fair to say that the minister is a fairly astute politician, so I'm sure those considerations have crossed his mind. But at this point, we just know he's asked the question, would we support him? And so we're trying to formulate a responsible answer to that question.
Any other questions or comments? So essentially, if I saw that quite a few of the regions did support EPR, so that's another question that council could support if we wanted to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's the goal here. I think shopping bags may be sort of a low-hanging fruit and an easy win for the minister, if I could be so bold as to say that. The real solution lies in the EPR, and that's what we have to keep pressing for, I believe.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, well, I guess we'll have to discuss it further, but we have to make a decision pretty soon, I imagine. So,
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
We go to 3.2, Atlantic Immigration Pilot, Gino Thibault.
Monsieur le préfet, conseiller, ça fait plaisir.
Mr. Warden, councillors, it's my pleasure to be here this evening. I'm trying to find my presentation. It's in.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Where's Naren? All right. Good evening, everybody. Unfortunately, the presentation is in English, so I'll go through the presentation. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask in French, don't hesitate, please. First thing, I hope you guys have some version of this presentation on your systems. Yes. Okay. The first slide is nice pictures of the region. Second slide is, of course, what is the REN? It's a business-facing, business-led organization there to help businesses. The next slide, I put this here because it's very important to understand that there are multiple pathways to immigration, and the Atlantic Immigration Pilot is just one of the pathways. On this slide, you can see that the dark green is the Atlantic Immigration Pilot. The light green is the provincial nominee program, and the blue is what the federal government has for options. Okay, so there are many streams in immigration. Next slide. The Atlantic Immigration Pilot was designed to address the unique challenges of Atlantic Canada. It was developed by the federal and provincial governments, and it actually doubles the number of provincial nominee allocations for the province. This is a golden opportunity for us because on the next slide, we realize that this is the population for the western region for the sector that the REN operates in. Okay, so Barrington to Digby. So about 49,000 people live in the area. What's interesting is the percentages in this slide, where 57% of our population is 45 and over. So that tells us that in a few years, we are going to have a problem with labor force, right? And some companies already feel it now. Next slide. There's 3 streams within the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, and eligible candidates can apply for the intermediate skills, the high skill program, or the international graduate program. This is the only program out there right now that has a stream for intermediate skill workers. Okay. Key benefits of this program is faster processing. There's an interim work permit issued to the candidate. You're able to skip the labor market impact assessment. International graduates can be hired right out of school. So if they go to school at a university in Atlantic Canada, we can hire them as soon as they're done. They don't need that 1 year of work experience. It's a permanent labor force solution. So these are all for full. Atlantic Immigration Pilot is always for full-time permanent jobs. Okay. What's new for businesses is it applies to a broader range of jobs. The language requirement was actually lowered a little bit to Canadian language benchmark of 4, okay, which the standard is 5. You still have to bring them up to 5, but they can come into the country at 4, okay? And that is French or English, being a bilingual country. How do we get started? Well, the first step is to apply to become designated by the province. Connect with a settlement service provider, because that's a key piece. Because as much as we want to bring in these people, we want to keep them, right? We want to keep them in our region. So the settlement piece becomes very important, so that they feel welcome and are able to integrate in our community and help our communities grow. Once you find your candidate, you apply for endorsement. Once that's approved, then the person is on the way. The next slide is numbers. I do have the updated numbers from last week, so I can give you those. There were 458 employers that have applied to be designated in the province. Okay, there are 348 that have been designated. There were 436 endorsement applications, and of those 436, 334 have been approved right now. Okay, so it is getting more momentum, and as you can see with the numbers that you have on your slide, they increase very well over time. Like any program, it does take a little bit of time to get the ball rolling, but once the ball is rolling, then things start to fall into place. What we would ask from you to, if you could, it's tell your employers about it, this program. Tell your friends, tell your centers of influence, tell your elected leaders, right? Repeat, because if we don't take advantage of this program, well, first of all, it's going to go away. And with the population the way it's going, we're going to have a problem with keeping our manufacturing, any kind of industry or commerce in the region, because we won't have the labor force to work. So it's important to start thinking about that. Okay. Is there any question? Est-ce qu'il y a des questions?
Any questions?
Company or business could become designated because they're interested in finding candidates. Then they find candidates. At what point in time do they become a permanent resident of Canada? Like, is it if they're accepted through their application, or what? How does that work?
Well, first of all, the company has to apply to be designated. Once that, it's a relatively simple form, okay? It's very high-level information at that point. Once you apply for the endorsement piece, then it goes down to the bones of the situation, right? You have to prove that you did advertise your job. There's checks and balances to see that you've tried to give it to a Canadian citizen first. Then if you find a candidate overseas or from another country, you make a job offer to that candidate. You apply for endorsement to the province. The province approves your endorsement and approves your job application once they've looked it over. Once that's done, you can apply for a temporary work visa to get the person here a little bit faster, or you can wait for their permanent residency to come through. In a normal stream, it takes between 18 and 24 months to get permanent residency. With the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, they're telling us about 6 months. Right, so it's a lot faster. It's a lot faster processing. It's much quicker to get the person here. They've streamlined a lot of things, but the province does do a lot of checks to make sure that things are in order, and of course the coming immigrant has to be vetted by the federal government also. Right.
Along the number one highway, I'm sure you've seen businesses here, and they're quite busy, and I'm sure they could benefit from this program. Do you agree that they would benefit and could use this program to get more employees?
Definitely. I think every business, I'm just making sure, I think every company should be, look, because it's a two-part situation, the designation piece of it being the first part, I look at it as a tool in your toolbox, right? You get designated, and then if you have a labor need that you cannot fill, then you have that tool that you can use that's there. Because if you get designated, you're designated for the length of the program, which is a 3-year pilot. We're 1 year in, so there's 2 years left. So it gives the opportunity to, if you have a need to use it, then you can, right? And yes, I think there's quite a bit of industries in the region that would benefit highly from this. Because we have to remember, this program is made not only to bring the person in, because that's one thing. Bring an employee in to work, and that's one thing. But this program is made to bring their entire family, right? So when you're talking about that first employee that you made the job offer to, well, if that person has 2 children, a spouse, you're looking at 4 people, right? So that's more people in our schools, more people in our grocery stores, more people in buying clothes, more people paying taxes, more people, right? So it's more people in our community, helps the community grow, and helps us be a little more diverse.
I agree that they would benefit. I guess I was just wondering how much of a process and if it's worth, I'm sure there's a lot of time involved. No.
Well, the initial part is very, it's not very complicated, okay, the designation part. Of course, recruiting internationally and finding your candidate and then processing them in, it is immigration. It is a process. But this program is very streamlined. I remember back in the day, I used to own a Chinese restaurant, and we'd bring in cooks regularly. And at that time, it was a 2-year process minimum, and the paperwork was mountains, right? And it was very expensive. This program really, there's no cost to be designated. There's no cost to be endorsed. There is a minor fee for a temporary work visa. And then depending on the settlement plan or the settlement agreement that the employer and the employee agrees on, then that might depend, right? But there's really no upfront cost. You're welcome.
D'autres questions, Hector?
Any more questions, Hector?
Neither of how many people you would like to bring in. You must have a number somewhere down the road in 3 years. How many people you would like to bring in?
Well, there's the goal of the province is to bring in an additional 800 people per year with this program. That's a very good goal, and that's for the primary applicant, right? We have to remember that, because the numbers I gave you was all for the primary applicant. If that person has 4 or 6 people coming in with them, it's that much more in our communities. My opinion is if most of our local businesses would just hire one, and that person brings in 3 to 4 people, think about how the growth of our area would be, right? So what I want is irrelevant. It's to fulfill the needs and the labor needs of our employers and make sure that we keep those industries here.
Do you have any idea how many people are needed in Southwest Nova to fill the jobs that are coming up?
I do not have that number. That would be a very interesting number to look at. I do not have that number present yet.
As-t-il quelqu'un d'autre?
Anybody else? Yvon?
Settlement services organizations and stuff to help them once they get here, like to make them feel at home and stuff like that.
Well, there are different community groups, of course, that have been established. There's one in Clare. There's also the YMCA through the Y Reach program. There is a person in Yarmouth. There's a person in Digby at their YMCA's, of course. There's also ISANS, which is the provincial body, and there are many other organizations across the province. It's actually pretty impressive, the support that we have in place for these newcomers, from education for language improvement to the settlement service piece. There's many programs out there to help facilitate their inclusion in our community.
Do you get much feedback of what's the families are thinking? Are they liking it? Is the feedback pretty good coming back from that? Or?
We're lucky because in Canada we have a very attractive environment for people to come in. Most people that are here enjoy it and are thriving. I mean, if you look at there's always you hear all these success stories about immigrants coming in and starting businesses and growing and helping their communities. That happens every day. I mean, we're basically all immigrants, right, at some point. Or there's an immigrant in our ancestry somewhere, right? So I think bringing people in, helping them grow here as Canadians will help us grow as a country.
D'autres questions?
Any more questions?
That's always a big issue, to find adequate housing. Who has the responsibility to make sure that they do have a place to live that is adequate?
Well, like any other person, it's your responsibility to find your housing. Now, part of the settlement plan might include helping to find housing on a temporary basis until they find something they want, right? Because I mean, we live in Canada, freedom of choice, right? So the settlement plan, the way it's built, it highlights the key things that will help the person assimilate, which where to bank, where to find doctors, where to find dentists, schools, everything. Housing is a piece of it. Transportation is another piece of it. But it's transition there's a transition between when they come in and when they actually live here, if you understand what I mean. So yes, there's advantages for the employer to help find a temporary place, but you don't necessarily have to pay for it, right? There's a difference there.
Just to make, so they don't have to have a place before they come. They can come, and once they're here, they look for a place versus, okay. Eric?
You touched a very big one though a few minutes ago. When you're talking in Canada and Nova Scotia, we do have a shortage of family physicians. So you bring these people in, are they guaranteed to have a family physician? What's the province's take on that?
No, it's like any other person, right? They go on the list like any other person coming in. But we have to remember that even if we don't necessarily have a family physician, being here, we have the ability to go to the hospital and get treated, which in many countries that just doesn't happen. So, I mean, for some people to come here is a great advantage.
I guess my question was if they had some kind of a special program with doctors for these people. That's
Not that I know of. Okay. Yeah.
As-tu d'autres questions?
Are there other questions? Any other questions? If there are none, thank you for the presentation. It looks like a really good program. It seems to answer needs in Clare. So continue with the good work. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with you this evening. Have a good evening. We now go to 4 minutes, 4.1, February 21st, regular council meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? Moved by Yvon, seconded by Danny. All in favor? Against? Carried. 4.2, March 7th, 2018, council in committee meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? Moved by Danny, seconded by Carl. All in favor, say aye. Against? Carried. 5, business arising from previous meetings. 5.1, redevelopment project, Belleville Cove Development Commission. This is just a follow-up from recent meetings. We had a representation of the commission concerning the Jean Béliveau boat project. This project, which the municipality supported a number of years ago. At the time, we had approved $250,000 over 5 years, $30,000 per year for 5 years. There have been delays in the project, among other things, the effort to assume possession of the boat. It turned out to be a challenge, but the commission has now solved that problem, and they are prepared to go ahead with the project. They are in discussion with ACOA and the province, and the question that we have to answer is whether the council still supports the project, and secondly, are we willing to honor the $150,000 contribution to the project? Essentially, the project had fallen away. We supported the CJA and they resubmitted. So I think what was approved on the books a number of years ago, we would have to approve it again. At present, where the group now is, they are developing an application for financing, and there was an application to the council for the contribution of $150,000. The council at the time had thanked the group for their presentations, and that the council would come up with a decision as to whether they were willing to support the project to the tune of $150,000. I will be meeting the group tomorrow. They have meetings with ACOA and the province today. They had them today. The contribution of ACOA and the province are not confirmed, but there seems to be interest. The question which I will be asked is, what is the position of the council with regard to potential financing or funding of the project? Ivo. They wanted 75,000 per year over 2 years. At the other presentation, they are basing themselves on the same amount as their original application, which was 150,000. Their application is to keep the same amount, $150,000, but they would extend it over 2 years only, so that would come to $75,000 per year. As a point of information, the project has a budget, if I can find it in my papers, with $672,113. The application to ACOA would be for half of that. The application to the province would be to $118,000. The group is ready to finance 10% of the project, 211. Sorry about that amount, but that's conditional on the municipality contributing $150,000. English.
50,000 from us to leverage funds from ACOA? I don't remember some of the details, so.
No, it's certainly one of the things that ACOA or even the province will look at once they do consider the application is who are the other funders around the table. And certainly if those funders, whoever they may be, have confirmed their contributions towards the project, then that, certainly helps the process along, or, accelerates the process. But, I know ACOA and the province, I would assume, will be looking for, as they would with any project, what's the level of, community support for this project. And, typically when you're trying to assess community support for a project, you will look to see if the municipal government is supportive, so.
Quelqu'un d'autre? Nick?
Anyone else? Neil? I think we could see if this project isn't in two parts. First part is the boat and the building, and the second part would be 2 years later. That was the other part they wanted to do. But we should remember here that the wharf belongs to the municipality, but on the side of the lighthouse, there's a bit of a deterioration. There's potential for costs if we don't do something now or in the near future. This would be a project that could go over 4 years. But if the province and ACOA are willing to put money in, I'm willing to put money in. Anyone else? I support the idea of the project because it would bring in the boat and attract people to the community concerning the funding. We could perhaps have a recommendation from the our general director whether our budget allows for this. If we, and that would determine whether we support the project. My recommendation, subject to approval of the council, would that we take it out of our capital reserve. This is like the building of a building. This would be one of the major parts of the project, and it would be a capital project. And we would take it out of that reserve. And there's also a walkway, and there would be renovations to the lighthouse. These are items that should come out of capital reserve. What would be the percentage of our contribution? Has that been calculated? Microphone. I have the figures, but I haven't calculated the percentages. Perhaps it would be around 20%. One small concern I have is that they are going to do the project and only hand it over to us after the boat is finished. Given that it will cost us $150,000, what does that mean? That's a question concerning the boat. We asked the question to the group, and their intention is to give the boat to us at the end, and that would be responsible for its maintenance and insurance. I've asked for more information from the group concerning that. What does insurance mean? What kind of annual cost would that be? I haven't had answers to that yet. It's not a lack of effort on their part. It's just it's a unique object, and it's difficult to know exactly what the insurance would be. We haven't had that information yet from the group. It would be a good idea before we give an answer that we should have that information. What happens if there's an accident on the wharf? Who is responsible? It's fine to put the money in, but we should know these things ahead of time. Concerning the wharf, it belongs to us now, so we are covered by the insurance if anything happens there. If there were another building and a park, the park would also be municipal property, and we would be insured. But it would be an increase because of the additional building, and we would have to adjust our insurances as a result of the addition, and the boat would be within the building. That would have an impact on our insurance premiums. All the costs of maintaining the building for the boat, would that be the responsibility of the municipality? Yes, it would be treated like our municipal parks, like the lighthouse at Cape St. Marie. We would be responsible for maintenance. Is there anyone else? Is it the consensus of the council that Stefan should obtain the information that we don't have yet, but before we make a decision? We go on now to 6.
We'll go on to the Warden's Activity Report. On 24th and 25th of February, I went to Sherbrooke, Quebec, with McAlpine, the warden of the municipality of Digby, and Gordon Wilson, the MLA, to meet the students who are in medicine in Sherbrooke. It was a small evening, as I mentioned a couple of meetings ago. There were 10 students there. The majority were from Nova Scotia and some from St. Anne's. And these are students who are studying in French, first of all, but they are interested in the region. So it was a good evening. And honestly, I think there are a few of our students who plan to come back, but they still have a few years before they finish. So it was certainly a good activity. On February 27th, I attended to a meeting in Yarmouth with Environment and Climatic Change Canada to explore the possibility of having another radar in the area at the airport. But essentially, it was a big discussion regarding what is a Dr. radar, what it does, and it's not. A lot of fishermen look at marine forecasts, which aren't too accurate, but the doctor is for the snow and the rain, and all that is to predict the rainstorms and snowstorms, but it doesn't indicate the winds and hurricanes and all that. So there was a consensus that the Poplar would not solve the problem that we have in the area, especially for the fishermen. So they were looking more at having a box, a lot of buoys in the ocean to have more accurate forecasts to see what is going on there. And it could be communicated quickly. So after the meeting, we decided that there would be no radar at this end of the province. On March the 3rd, I went to a meeting in Yarmouth. March 16th, it was a meeting organized to give the opportunity to the municipalities to ask questions and to express their worries on the request for exploration authorization with British Petroleum who applied for a license to drill for offshore oil and gas. They are part of their mandate is to talk to the public and to different organizations and essentially to the municipalities. But they were not looking to see if we were in favor or not, but the board work under the Canadian law and the provincials. So the impression that I had was it's not any different from an inspector. If you meet all the requirements, you get your permit. So this is similar because there are parts of a company that are open to apply for licenses, but they have to meet criteria. And more or less, if you meet those criteria, you will have a license. So it's more or less they were looking more at the problems. I had 3 or 4 emails this morning from the board that I will send to you. They're with a lot of information that you can go through. On March 16th, I had an interview with CBC to discuss the purchase of the Oath of Allegiance and the importance of this document to the community. On March 21st, today, I attended to a session on Canadian engagement regarding the affordable lodging in Yarmouth. You remember we gave financing, I think, $12,000 or $15,000 or 1,150 different municipalities had done that to have a study on the housing. And this is the first draft that came out. It looks at the whole region, but they told us this morning that the specific information for Clare will come out this week. So I have the document. I will have it on my desk if you want to go through it. And I think you might have a copy by email. And this afternoon, on the 21st, I went to Shelburne for a organized presentation by Campaign to Protect Offshore Nova Scotia. More or less, it was the beginning of the week. The Petroleum Board was here, and this time it's the Council of Canadian and different organizations who oppose offshore drilling and gas. And we saw both sides of the arguments. And by saying that it's not in the report, but our suggestion, there was myself and different wardens from Argyll, Barrington, Shelburne, Yarmouth, that we organize a meeting probably with the council in Yarmouth, that with the Petroleum Board, who could come make a presentation, and all council and councillors will be invited, and that it be televised, and they are trying to organize that. As wardens, we were not at ease. There is a lot of information. It would be impossible to come to the council and communicate what they had explained. So that is more or less my report. If you have any questions. So we'll go on to 7 official presentations from the council members. Alphonse. I would like to congratulate Mr. DeVoe from Church Point, Tristan DeVoe, who had 3 gold medals last week in Halifax. She won in the under 21 category in karate. The second gold medal that she won was for 18 years and more, and the gold medal for the team. It's the first person in Nova Scotia who won 3 gold medals in the championships. I want to add that Tristan is captain of the Nova Scotia team since 4 years, and she really has done really well, and I suggest that the council give her a certificate of recognition. And I want to say that Denise Thibault of Sonyville won the bronze medal in the under 40 kg. You all agree with sending her a certificate? Any more presentations? Thank you, Mr. Warden. On February 22nd, I was at a meeting for the Health Board. I was invited to their meeting. On February 24th, I attended to a workshop on sledge hockey that was organized by the Clare Atelier de Clare workshop. And for those who don't know what sledge hockey is, you can Google it, but it was started by the handicapped. It's a hockey on a sledge, and it was really well. We were about 30 people, and it was really good. On March the 8th, I attended to a round table at the university on health and public health. That was also very well. It was attended by a lot of people. On March 19th, I went to a waste check meeting, our regular monthly meeting. I have nothing more to say about the meeting. Nothing has changed. And also on March the 21st, which was today, I attended to a good evening at the 5 to 7 to honor Elaine Timot and Georgette Leblanc. It was organized by the Acadian Society of Clare. It was really well. They gave certificates and things to and there was a good turnout. And at the same time, I also brought our certificate, but yes, our oath of allegiance, and that made a hit there. The public really appreciated that I had brought that there. They could see what it was. And lately, I would like to mention that on the 24th of February, it went by, it was the 50th wedding anniversary to Yvan and Annette Thibault. Yvan Thibault, who was a former councillor here, and we should send them a certificate for their 50th wedding anniversary. Thank you. Do you all agree with sending a certificate? Any more official presentations? Events that you want to note? If not, we will go on to 8.1 correspondence letter from Waste Check from General Manager Gus Green.
What make it out?
Consider approving the new bylaw. It is our belief that having uniform solid waste bylaws across our region will be beneficial to residents, businesses, and enforcement personnel. The bylaw has been circulated to all 6 municipal CAOs. If you would like to discuss this bylaw, or if you would like WasteCheck staff to attend a council meeting to present on the bylaw, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Gus Green, General Manager.
So, je sais pas, avez-vous eu chance de garder la bylaw au 6 avril?
Did you get a chance to look at the bylaw, or will it go to the bylaw committee? The bylaw committee has not met there yet to discuss the bylaw, but we had talked about it before. I think the intention is to bring it to the bylaw committee for a recommendation before bringing it to the council for consideration. So you are in agreement that we send it to the committee? 8.2, a letter from the South Shore Regional.
On behalf of the South Shore Regional Hospital Auxiliary, I want to send congratulations on your well-thought-out program for attracting new doctors to your area. Each unique area of the province has its own problems to overcome when trying to recruit new doctors. We are very impressed with your strategy. We would be very interested in having someone from the municipality speak at one of our regular auxiliary meetings. The South Shore Regional Hospital Auxiliary is the largest auxiliary in the province of Nova Scotia. As residents of Nova Scotia, we must all accept responsibility for ensuring that the best health care possible is available in our area. Looking forward to hearing from you in the near future. Please see my contact information below, or feel free to email Auxiliary Secretary Karen Tippert. Yours very truly, Sharon Ritzy, President, South Shore Regional Hospital Auxiliary.
Do you want to send someone to speak to them? It's more or less what they are asking in their presentation. I think that the general director, who is well aware of everything, if he can find it in his time to meet with them, I have no problem with that at all. You all agree with that? 8.3, a letter from the Epilepsy Association of Nova Scotia.
Seulement les
I will
sections de la lettre.
of the letter.
The Epilepsy Association of Nova Scotia was created in 1980 and for 35 years has provided service and support, as well as programming for all persons who live with epilepsy, their families, and their communities in the Maritimes. The Epilepsy Association of Nova Scotia is reaching out to all maritime municipalities across the provinces to support Purple Day, March 26th. This is Purple Day's 10th anniversary, and we hope all municipalities, towns, and cities participate. Purple Day was founded by Cassidy Megan, an 8-year-old little girl who wanted one day every year where everyone would learn about epilepsy and support those that live with this neurological condition. On June 28th, 2012, the Government of Canada created the Purple Day Act and received royal assent. March 26th is officially recognized as Purple Day in Canada. Working with Cassidy Megan, our organization approached the Anita Kaufman Foundation in the US, and together Purple Day is now a global initiative. It is recognized in over 70 countries and on every continent. The Epilepsy Association of Nova Scotia is asking every municipality to participate in the month of March, Epilepsy Awareness Month, and specifically show your support for your constituents who live with epilepsy. We will provide all council members with purple ribbons and respectfully request that they be worn throughout the month of March, and especially at your monthly March council meeting. We would appreciate a photo, if at all possible, that can be emailed to our address, and with your permission, we can upload to our Facebook page. Last year we did this, and you would not believe how many people from every community in the surrounding areas that contacted us and told us how much they appreciated your support. We are asking you to show support so that all persons who live with epilepsy in your municipality know that you stand beside them, and to help increase awareness, promotion, inclusion, and demonstrate support. Additionally, because this is Purple Day's 10th anniversary, we will hold our Purple Day Ambassador Conference on June 9th, 2018. This is also an opportunity for your council to recommend anyone in your constituencies who live with epilepsy or a parent who has a child with epilepsy as an ambassador. The conference will be a one-day event, and those traveling from 3 hours drive or more will be invited to stay overnight at a hotel. The conference will have informative sessions for adults, an opportunity to train as an educational consultant in their home area, and fun activities for the kids. Kids of all ages and youth will also be given the tools and training on how they too can become true ambassadors and in their home areas. We are hoping to make this an annual event. Please feel free to contact us at the address below to let us know how many ribbons you wish to have and what your plans are to show support in your community. Also include anyone who lives in your area you think would be interested in becoming an ambassador, their names and contact information. Kindest regards, Debbie Tobin, Executive Director.
We will perhaps discuss this at the end of the meeting. Are they asking for an ambassador to represent our community? Yes, certainly. If they are open, if we want to supply names or the name of someone who would be interested, they're certainly open to entering into contact with them, with people who are interested in becoming ambassadors and working with the association. How do we communicate with the public on this? Should we advertise this? We can certainly post it on our website and Facebook when we took photographs of the municipal building in pink and purple. We received a lot of shares and likes, and Facebook is a very good tool for that, and word of mouth works very well. All in agreement with that? 8.5 email Peter Evans, Major Point Road. Wait, 8.4, sorry, letter from Employment Opportunities Partnership by Executive Director Debbie Tobin. Debbie Cook.
Municipality of Clare. First responders put their lives on the line for us each and every day. They are the first people on the scene when an emergency strikes. These brave individuals are always running towards dangerous situations to save and protect the people of our communities. There can never be put a dollar value on these services, because without them, our communities would be in turmoil. We don't have to risk our life day in and day out to keep our communities safe. What we have to do is support those who do. For those who are our first responders and who make a positive impact on our lives every day, let's take the time to make a positive impact on theirs. Let's show them how they're appreciated. Letting the first responders know that we care can make all the difference in the world for them. They have a tough job day in and day out, yet they continue to serve and protect. A simple thank you can help keep their spirits strong. Rallying together for this evening of honor and celebration creates opportunities to collaborate, connect, and learn about the unique challenges our first responders incur. It's a collective opportunity to learn how they work through these challenges and to say thank you for their courage, strength, commitment, and sacrifice. This is our community's opportunity to say thank you for having the courage to serve and protect us and for laying your lives on the line every day for the people of the communities that you serve. This evening will consist of a dinner to be held at the Pines in Digby with entertainment. The time will be 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Thursday, May 31st. In order to move forward with this most important event, we are looking for support. Attached is our package for your review. Whatever you are able to do to assist in this great event will be greatly appreciated. It will be an evening of fun, laughter, food, great company, and our time to give appreciation to the people who keep us safe. We look forward to hearing from you and seeing you at the event on May 31st. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Yours truly, Debbie J. Cook, Executive Director.
Des questions, commentaires ou...
C'est un beau reste de leur part.
Any questions or comments from employment opportunities? Is this an open invitation? They're asking for support. As an information point, I communicated with the municipality of Digby and the town of Digby. The municipality of Digby decided that this was a point for discussion in council. The town of Digby was not aware of the event. In the municipality, they have some questions concerning who will be going there, and when the expenses are paid for, where does any excess go? So the chief administrative officer thinks there are questions that have not yet been answered, so they haven't confirmed their support, and the town of Digby was not yet informed of this event. For me, it's not clear what, we could put money, but if we're doing this to thank them and they won't be there, so it's a strange way to do this. Are you in agreement that we should wait on more information and find out what the municipality of Digby will do and whether the first responders will be there? During the last weeks, I had the opportunity of speaking to different departments of fire departments. There wasn't one of them who spoke to me about this event. So I don't know whether it's a new event. I'm not sure to what extent that the emergency service providers of our municipality are aware of this event. I know it's not limited to fire responders, but to other types of first responders, but I'm not sure to what extent the emergency service providers of Clare are aware of this. Through my work with EHS, what happens, fire and EMS, they're all considered to be first responders, and this has caused problems because on one side there are those who are paid, like us, and there are others who are volunteers, and this causes problems because it's a strange atmosphere, because there's the ones who are paid and the ones who aren't. I'm not sure whether we're not getting into a difficult situation personally, I would not go to this event because there would be too much conflict, because I'm paid to do what I do. So I wouldn't go personally, but if someone else goes, that's fine. Hector? No, thank you. I'm wondering whether if we did this for volunteers, that's what I thought of. If we give $1,500, we could take $1,500 and invite more people to the banquet. At present, on this point, I'm sure that we have adopted an emergency service providers policy, which is open to fire responders and ground search and rescue. It seems to me that it would be appropriate to widen this, following on the wish of the council, of course. What do you think of that idea? It seems to me that this is a good event, that we're there to thank them, but I think it would be a good idea. Ivo, there might be a lot of overlap between the first responders, which are also fire responders. (8.5) email from Peter Evans. I received this email from Peter Evans in English.
Containing the cost estimates for Point Road provided by Spec Resources. As you know, the application was started in 2010. We have been trying to determine if there is a way to engage in a responsible and viable development in our municipality. Unfortunately, many of our requirements for the development of municipal roads have proven to be prohibitive because of the costs associated with the requirements of the bylaw. Many of our attempts at compromise have not been successful, including our attempt to have a slightly narrow road in a low-traffic area. The current cost estimate is based on an assumed repayment period of 15 years. When we last approached the bylaw committee to extend the existing 10-year repayment period, we learned that this period was not established for any particular reason and was not based on a financial requirement or rationale. We appreciate the extension of the repayment period to 15 years in an effort to enhance the potential viability of this development. However, the basis for the 15 years is no different than the one for 10 years. This should mean there is no reasonable basis not to consider a 20-year repayment period. We believe having a 20-year repayment period is the only hope of having this type of regulated development for the Point Road process in a viable manner. Furthermore, it may well be the only way for any future development in our municipality under the bylaw in question. In an attempt to bring this 8-year application process to some form of successful conclusion, could you provide a revised cost estimate based on the 20-year repayment schedule? Sincerely, Peter. So the at the last the calculation based on 20 years is not difficult to provide. I have the spreadsheet. It's just a matter of updating the information to provide what the annual payment would be. Essentially, it would reduce the principal portion or the annual payment, but it would subsequently increase the amount of interest they're paying over the lifetime, the duration of the loan. That being said, the reason I brought it before council this evening, I have yet to provide that information. And if council wishes, I'll certainly do so. But I wanted council's direction as to whether or not, in an effort to manage expectations, does council want to entertain looking at a 20-year amortization period? At the last council meeting, when this was discussed before Christmas, it was determined that we would maintain the bylaws requirement in terms of width of the road, which means that we would have to respect TIR standards. but that there was a willingness by council to go from 10 years, which is currently what it is stated in our bylaw, extend that out to an additional 5 years to 15 years. Council was fairly firm on that number at the time. We're now being requested to revisit that decision. So I'm just looking for a bit of for direction on council as to how we proceed.
But essentially, my feeling is if we are considering it, then it should go back to the bylaw committee, wouldn't you say? Because it is a recommendation from the bylaw committee. I don't know. I don't know what. Ivo?
Was there any movement at the Department of Transportation if they're willing to take the road? Wasn't there somebody in that group who would approach them to see if there was an interest to take the road? I was not under the impression that the group would take over, look at the takeover by the Transportation Department, but what I had discussion with them, like Peter mentions in his email, this has been going on for a while, but when I spoke with the department, the answer that I got was that they already looked at serving the roads that are there now, and they are not ready to take some new roads, but they would be ready to negotiate taking over this road if they can take out another road from the Clare municipality from their list. But in reality, we don't have such a road, so we have nothing to negotiate with. So there is nothing to come out of the list because all roads are either provincial or private. But as far as I know, the position of the Department of Transportation has not changed. If the group has contacted the department, it's not something that they shared with us. I don't know what the other members of the bylaw committee think, but my opinion is that if it is the desire of the council to that the committee look at the 20-year option, if it is the desire of the council, they can do that. Is there a big difference between, you mentioned paying interest for 20 or 15 years. Is there a big difference? Is there a ballpark figure what the difference would be? Not yet, no. That's the short answer. Unfortunately, I did not have time to put something together for the meeting tonight. It can be done rather quickly, but my schedule did not allow me so far. The problem that is underlined is that they asked us to modify the bylaw. We did modify it, but it's not what they want. So the question is, if it's the bylaw, will we just change the bylaws until it meets their needs? I am not saying we shouldn't do it, but it's a precedence that we are creating. If we don't have any bylaw, we just keep modifying it to meet the needs. I understand. I know the bylaw we had put the bylaw for 10 years. It could have been 25 years. I know that if we go to 20 years, the council can decide that, but they still need to go see all the citizens on that road. And I don't know what the percentage is, if it's 2/3 of the people who must vote in favor. And I know some people only have some lands, and what will they say? Some have 5 or 6 pieces of land, and they would have to pay a big percentage. They might not be in agreement, I don't know. It might increase the value of their lands and more development can be done there. I can't see the future, but If we decide to go to 15 years or 20 years and that's it, and we still have to go see the people and have a reply from them. If not, we'll just scrap the bylaw because it's another road that we can't take. So the idea, more or less, from their part, I don't know what the other members of that road think, but Gerard and Peter Evans think that putting it to 20 years in terms of payments for 20 years is more or less to reduce the annual payment. That's essentially that, yes, they find that the cost is expensive. Their intention would be to have a more narrow road to reduce the cost, but it's not something that the bylaw committee was in agreement to bring to the council. They were not ready to consider that option. So essentially they are looking at other ways to reduce the cost. Presently, we did not get any feedback from Gerard or Peter regarding the position of the group. The residents of the Majors Point, I don't know what their reaction is regarding what we had proposed. I don't know if they had their meeting or if they want to extend it to another meeting. They don't think it would be acceptable. We did not have a formal meeting with the residents to see, but as the deputy warden mentioned, there is no guarantee also that the 20 years will be good. It will reduce the cost to a point where it will satisfy all the residents of that road. Would it be a good point to wait for an answer from the residents? We might be doing this for nothing. If they say no, then we are back at the beginning. I can certainly give them the information. It's not something that takes a lot of time, but the last time for the 15 years, we said we were willing to consider 15 years. We would have made an amendment to the bylaw, and we don't want to have an amendment to the bylaw before we have something concrete. We don't want to do this for nothing. But to make bylaws is a process. We did not have that feedback. We can take it for granted that Peter's solution is the answer. And if that is the case, I can give them the information for 20 years and see what their reaction would be. But it creates a precedence that we are always looking at modifying our position. If we ask them for an answer, will we ask them for 2 or 3 months? And then we will give them a policy. If not, it will drag on for a long time. But just to clarify, did we get a reply for the 15th? Did they see everybody and inquire about what the council is proposing? No. I gave the information that was asked in December before the holidays that included a spreadsheet with what it would represent as payments for all the residents of the Major Point Road. And this is the first correspondence I received from the group. Apart from that, we had no discussion regarding if these discussions were made with the residents or if it is still the percentage required, 2/3 of the residents. But the more it goes on, we have an estimate that is already 3-4 months old. The more longer that it goes, the estimates, like everything else, change like everything else and can increase. So this is only an estimate. It's not something that was approved by our engineer. So we have to take all this into consideration.
Champs,
I feel that if we gave the 15 years, they had to bring that to the residents on the road to see that it is really a recommendation. I see that it is more too expensive, but what do the residents have to say? I don't know what you think about this. In fairness to Peter, I did not ask him the question. They probably had that discussion before this meeting, but if yes, I will ask them to share it with us. If I understand in his email, since we had decided not to expand the width of the road and to change it from 10 to 15 years, it did not reduce the cost by much. But if we had said the road, you can construct it to 25 feet wide, in 15 years it would have been reasonable for them. But since we did not get this, it does not reduce the cost. That's what they would like to do, reduce the cost. That's it, yes, the scenarios that we considered before the bylaw recommendation and decision from the council. We explored the decision on what the width of the road would represent in terms of costs. And it's true that it would be less expensive, but we are looking into another problem regarding the services offered. So we put a grate on a road that does not meet the standards. The school buses, the two school boards are confirmed that they are not going on those roads. And all the questions of garbage collection, it could be a problem if the road is not wide. That is a big factor in the recommendation for the bylaw, as you know. And the decision of the council was to respect the guidelines of the Department of Transportation and take responsibility of maintaining the road. I am not 100% where council is on this. If you want, I can communicate with Peter and have a discussion with the residents to see what the results will be, but I can give them the information and let them know that what it represents. It's not a promise that we will do it, but at least they will have the information to present to the residents and go from there. I would agree that you present them the figures for a period of 20 years, but it doesn't mean that we will accept to change our rules as they exist now. Yes, the way that the bylaw is written, even if the group in Majors Point or any other group, if they respect the norms of the bylaw, it is still the decision of the council. There is nothing that obliges us, the way the bylaw is written, to take over that road. It is a decision that will be made by the council to take it or not. My last comment is to find a reasonable figure. At least is 20 years too high, or 15? I have no problem at looking at the figures. At the end, we will need to decide if 15 years is the limit. We don't have to make that decision this evening. Councillor Doucette, I didn't think they had the intention of changing it from 10 to 15. It's not a big change, but like Councillor Thibault said, we should give them the figures, and Mr. Como said that he gave them the figures for 20 years, and they need to go see the citizens, and if the people aren't in agreement, it'll finish there, and if not, it will come back to the council, and we'll make a decision then. So you are all, just a small comment, I don't know how long since that bylaw has been made for 10 years, but if it has been a long time, like everything else, times are changing and maybe 20 years might be reasonable. So when we have the cost to see, to be able to compare from 10 years to 20 years, maybe we'll see that 20 years is the way to go. But we'll need the figures before we decide. For 10 to 20 years to catch up over the years.
Well, you're all in agreement with that? We go on to 9, Chief Administrative Officer's Report. Many of the files that I address in this report haven't developed very much since February, since we've been waiting for information or decisions from other levels of government. So for the Church Point Sewer Treatment Plant and the sewer extension for the John Thibodeau Road, we have not had any news or new developments. For the Cultural Hub, we will be submitting an application for additional funding from ACOA for $30,000. This has been already approved from the municipality. The funding is for interior work. We've launched an RFP which will terminate tomorrow at 2 p.m. We've already received some bids. We'll be soon in position to finalize our application to ACOA. For the Clare 250th, the Clare Visitor's Guide will be coming out soon. There'll be things to do in Clare. There's a Facebook page for the Clare 250th. There are posts that come on the page every day. The logo has been launched. For wine bottle labels, we've received 14. The committee chose 2. They are the images from Denise Como and Diane Nadeau. The launch will be in early June. We have already issued a press release for the Clare 250th and other things following on a meeting of Acadian Affairs and La Francophonie. We have applied for funding in the area of $35,000 from the province, and we were authorized by the executive to submit this application. Concerning Cape St. Mary's Lighthouse, the official opening of the park has been confirmed for May 17th at 3 p.m. MP Colin Fraser will attend. The website for the new park will be launched during the week of April 2nd. The repairs to the roof will be finalized in early April, and the signage for the site is ready and will be installed in early April. And the sign on Highway 101 has been made, and the installation is also anticipated for early April. So the project is going ahead well. Concerning the fire hall in Saint Bernard, the electrical inspection is complete. The interior walls are constructed. Delmar is putting up the gyprock. Footings for back extension and the truck bays are complete. The footings for the truck bays have been poured. I'm not sure The pony walls have been poured today. And the wooden walls for the truck bays will be done next week. So the project is advancing very well, and this is positive. For the boundary review, I've already spoken about this to the council. As part of the boundary review, there will be a public hearing here at the municipal office on April 26th. There will be 2 meetings. The first will be held at 1 p.m. and the second at 7 p.m. Both will be open to the public. And in discussion with the UARB, they may, at their discretion, cancel the second meeting. They reserve this right. But for the time being, there will be 2 meetings, and the URB is responsible to advertise these meetings, and as soon as they produce the posters, we will put them up. The Grand Fondo, as of March 21st, today, we have 153 registrations, including 40 from out of province. For our sponsors for accommodation, we have 2 compared to 4 last year, Admiral Digby and Admiral Basis Conference Center. The Pines and Rod Grand have declined for this year. For the Jersey promotion, it started today for those who register for the Grand Fondo. If they register before the 31st of July, they receive a free jersey. There will be a press release on this subject. We are promoting this on social media, and there will be an email newsletter that will come out. In addition, we have advertising on Facebook, targeting markets outside of Nova Scotia beginning in April, and the money for that comes from Tourism Nova Scotia. We have $5,000 from the province. For the financial position of the municipality as of February 28th, we had revenues of $8,678,772 versus expenses of $7,517,262 for a net income of $1,161,510. As of February 28th, the municipality had a balance of $1,369,971 in its bank account, $288,716 in its capital fund, and a total reserve balance of $4,202,230. This last figure is divided as follows: operating reserve $440,000, capital reserve $2,646,567, landfill closure reserve $318,610, gas tax reserve $796,796. This represents the total payment for the last fiscal year. Internal remarks: the budget exercise is currently underway for 2018-2019. The staff will propose a tentative meeting for the 9th of April, which is a Monday, for a special meeting of the council to review the draft budget, if that is suitable to you. As a reminder, the deadline for applications under grants to organizations for 2018-19 is the 30th of March, which is next week. We have received about 10 applications to date. But if someone asks you, the form is available on our website. Performance evaluations are currently underway with the goal of having these completed by 30th of March, which is next week. A number of meetings I attended since February 21st. I attended the immigration forum organized by the CDNE at University St. Anne. I also associated to the Association of Municipal Administrators Western at Digby on the 9th, a tax sale on March 10th here at the municipal building. Monday, March 19th, I met the auditors, Grant Thornton, pre-audit planning. We do this every year, planning for the audit, which will take place in the summer. And this morning I was in court with Lynette Muse to look at the health center question. It is now closed. The judge gave us the order for the quieting of Titles Act. So that is settled. Upcoming meetings. I'm meeting tomorrow with the Belleville Cove Development Commission. There's an Echo Park meeting next Monday, 26th of March. There's a consultation with the University St. Anne's Strategic Plan. That will be on the 28th of March. And the Clare Health Foundation is on April 10th, and that is my report. Are there any questions? Thank you. You mentioned for the Grand Fundo, there are two places that aren't participating, the Pines and another establishment. They participated last year and they aren't participating this year. What we asked for from our sponsors is that we do promotion as part of the event. And we asked for a contribution of $400. Last year, all four contributing. This year, Digby Pines said no, and Rod Grand said that they were considering the question, but for this year, because the manager is new, he refused for this year, but he kept the door open for next year. The event has become so big that people will probably fill up those hotels in any case, but for this year, we have lost two sponsors. This doesn't mean we won't have them in the future. Are there any other questions? We move on to the reports of committees. Construction permits, Danny?
In February of 2017, there were 4 permits issued for $308,000 of construction. And in February of this year, there was 4 permits issued as well with $88,000 worth of construction. But the year to date, last year at this time, we had $430,000, and this year at this time, we're over double that. We're up at $891,000. So it's a good start to the year.
Maché, as-tu des questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Then we will go on to new business, 11.1, motion to contribute to the Acadian Regional Games 2018. At the Committee of Council meeting, we had a presentation and a request for $10,000 for the games. So they need an answer quick enough, so we put it to the agenda tonight for discussion and hopefully a decision. What is the desire of the council? I'm looking here, and at the top it says $10,000, and on the bottom in French, $3,000. They had noticed before. For a context, the last time that the games were in Clare, the council had given $10,000. Hector, if you want to read the motion. I move that the Council for the Municipality of the District of Clare contribute the amount of $10,000 to the 2018 Jeux de l'Acadie Regional Games. Seconded by Nil. Any discussion on the motion? As I said, it's an amount that we have given in the past, and it involves a lot of people in the area, and they certainly work hard to put the games in place. So, in saying that, if you are ready for the question, all those in favor indicate by saying yes. Contrary, no. Motion carried. Eric and Carl were in conflict, but you can go get them now. (11.2) Motion to register Clare Ground Search and Rescue as an emergency service provider. I can talk about it briefly. It is following a request that we had from Search and Rescue to register them as an emergency service provider. It was recommended by their provincial association, and it is exists in other districts. And the municipality put in place an emergency registration policy in February. The policy now is in effect, and that was made in according to the MGA, what is required by the municipality, and all this to say that it is not something that will cost us. We don't have to give them any finances. It doesn't mean that they are a department of the municipality. They are simply registered by the municipality as a service provider that allows them to be more effective when we activate the ground search and rescue. It'll facilitate the process. So it was a recommendation of the staff that we have them as emergency providers, and they have filled in the necessary forms according to our policy. Does anybody wish to make the motion? I move that the Council of the Municipality of the District of Clare register Clare Ground Search and Rescue as an emergency services provider with the municipality. Seconded by Councillor Hill. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor indicate by saying yes. Contrary, motion is carried. 11.3, motion to fix and tax exemption for the 2018-19 year. Every year, as part of the exercise for the auditors, we have to establish our rates for the residences with low income, and we look at what the rates are at other municipalities, and we decided to keep our rate at $300, but to increase the bottom line or the minimum annual income. So we are looking at keeping the exemption at $300, but to increase the minimum revenue from $18,500 to $19,000 per year. So a family that earns $19,000 or less will have a right to the exemption of $300 on their property taxes. Does anybody wish to make the motion?
District of Clare set the 2018-2019 low-income property tax exemption amount at $300 for households earning less than $19,000 per annum.
Does anybody second that? Seconded by Councillor Poitier. Any discussion on the motion? Certainly, it is important for the residents. Sometimes we think that it's not high enough, but it does make a big difference to the people who need it. By saying that, are you ready for the vote? All those in favor indicate by saying yes. Contrary, no. Motion is carried. 11.4, motion to write a letter of support to the Acadian Society of Clare. The Acadian Society of Clare approached us to support a second project again with the in leadership, civic leadership, and it is called the Leadership of Today and Tomorrow. It is part of the request that they will be submitting to the federal government, and the federal government asked them to show that there is support from the community, and if possible, to send letters of support. So that being said, the society asked us to prepare a letter for their project. The project Leadership of Today and Tomorrow includes environment, leadership, and engagement. It will be for a duration of 17 months, coordinated by one person who has experience with the youth. There will be 3 trainings related to the theme for the environment, leadership, and civic engagement. All the participants will follow the training for Leader in Me. And the interesting parts that I find interesting is a youth that participates in the project will put 150 hours of volunteer in the community, and as much as possible in French. And the objective is to work with 30 to 40 youths, and we hope to have about 5,000 hours of volunteering. Does anybody wish to make the motion? I move that the Council of the Municipality of the District of Clare write a letter to the Acadian Society of Clare in support of their project entitled Leader of Today and Tomorrow. Seconded by Councillor Thibault. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor indicate by saying yes. Contrary, no. Motion is carried. 11.5, motion to write a letter to the Nova Scotia Department of Municipal Affairs and the Office of the Acadian Affairs and Francophonie. Can you talk about this a bit? This is following the report that was prepared by the Commission on the Effective Representation and of the Acadians and Africans of Nova Scotians. And in that report, there was 2 recommendations, the recommendations 20 and 21 that touched specifically the municipality of Clare. The recommendation is that the services be offered in French, Clare being the only municipality in Nova Scotia who offers its services in both languages.
Municipality of the District of Clare should identify and implement a strategy to recognize the Municipality of Clare as officially bilingual as part of the Municipal Governance Act review. La recommandation
The recommendation 21 reads,
should identify, in collaboration with the Office of Acadian Affairs and Francophonie, strategies and funding to support the provision of French services by municipalities, notably, but not limited to, the municipalities of Clare, Argyll, Richmond, Inverness, and Halifax. Alors,
the letter essentially is following the discussion with the council. The council decided to follow up with these recommendations. They asked me to, the first step would be to prepare a letter to invite the Department of Municipal Affairs and Acadian Affairs, Minister Diab, for a meeting here or in Halifax to discuss how we will initiate this process, recognizing that if we are recognized as a bilingual municipality, there are certain obligations that come with this. It would include a lot of work and a cost related to that. So we would look at how we address these challenges. the letter would be to invite them to come to the table and have a discussion. So we talked quite a bit about this at the last meeting. So this is for the public's knowledge. It's not something we decided tonight. It has been discussed by the council for a while, and we had made a motion to recommend to the council that these letters be sent. Does anybody wish to make the motion? I move that the Council for the Municipality of the District of Clare send a letter to the Department of Municipal Affairs and to the Acadian Affairs and Francophonie Office of Nova Scotia requesting a meeting to discuss the recommendation put forward by the Commission on effective electoral representation of Acadians and African Nova Scotians. Does anybody second this? Seconded by Councillor DeVoe. Any discussion on the motion? As I said, we have talked quite about it at the last meeting. I think we are decided. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor indicate by saying yes. Contrary, no. Motion is carried. 11.6, invitation from University St. Anne. I think at the last meeting, in my report, I talked about the University St. Anne, who is preparing its strategic plan for 5 years, and they would like the council to participate in that exercise. So they sent me a letter or an invitation to invite you. It will be next Wednesday at the university at 6 o'clock on the 28th. And Alistair and the consultant will be there, and they would like to have as much council members to participate as possible. So they didn't tell me to let them know who is going or not. I will go, but if you can go, certainly it will be appreciated. I know that there are 3 councillors who have a meeting in Havelock on the 28th. Those who can meet, I will go, and Stefan will be there also, so anybody else. Where will it be at St. Anne's? On the 4th floor in the boardroom. Eric will go, and so we will have a good representation. So I will let them know that the majority will go. Next, the in-camera session. We have 2 items on camera. 12.1, the evaluation of the CAO, and 12.2, the St. Bernard Fire Department. So for those who are on the air, I am saying good evening. We need a motion to go in camera. Moved by Danny, seconded by Yvonne. All those in favor indicate by saying yes. Contrary, no. Motion